Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to Meet Our New Mentoring Platform Together, a live customer panel on mentorship and networking. We're excited to introduce to you Together Mentoring, which is now part of the Absorb family. So today's session is all about how organizations like yours are using mentorship and peer learning to build stronger teams, accelerate growth, and help employees feel more connected. As everybody's trickling in today, let's get the important stuff out of the way. What do you think is the best Together song on the screen? Go ahead and drop your answer in the chat. And while you're at it, feel free to share anything you're hoping to learn from today's session as well. We'd love to hear what brought you here. I have to give credit for this icebreaker to Andy Wade, one of our customer speakers. His team uses this, so it's super fun, and you'll hear from Andy in just a bit. All right, I'm seeing one person thinks come together. Love it. Somebody said we belong together. Nathan, we belong together is most played on Spotify. Love it. I think Kelly, you said that we belong together. Mariah Carey is your top. Awesome. Got to go with Mariah. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of Mariah. Al Green coming in from behind. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys for joining today. This is awesome. Love it. All right, so for those just joining, welcome again. You're in the right place for Meet Our New Mentoring Platform Together, a live customer panel on mentorship and networking. And today we're excited to introduce to you Together Mentoring, now part of the Absorb family. Before we get started, we're going to do a few introductions. My name is Liza Pugh. I will be your host for today, and I'm Senior Customer Marketing Manager here at Absorb, so I guarantee that most of you have gotten an email from me at some point. At Absorb, we're always looking to upskill ourselves, and I try to carry this into my personal life as well. So a few things I'm currently working on. I'm learning French. I'm at almost 750 days in Duolingo, so looking forward to using that when I travel. I'm also trip planning. So I'm planning our delayed honeymoon to Southeast Asia this fall. Very much looking forward to that. And then lastly, my husband and I just moved into our first house 3 weeks ago. So I'm getting my DIY skills up to speed. And with that, I'm excited to introduce Nathan, co-founder of Together.
Hi, I'm the head of product and engineering, so everything related to what we build at Together in our software. And a few things I'm learning. I'm learning about product marketing, which is today's webinar, and just more about how to communicate all of our product functionality. I'm always interested in how to do work faster with the new AI tools that are always changing. And a little personal curiosity is just how to run tax policy of a country and what the best ways to tax people are. So that's a little more about me.
Awesome. And with that, I'm excited to introduce our customer speakers. I will let Kelly introduce herself.
I wish I would have thought of AI, Nathan. That was a good one. Like that's one that I probably should upskill as well. My name is Kelly Pope. I am the Onboarding and Development Program Manager for ERGs, which is a sector of Compass. We provide food service to the B&I industry. I am learning how to make homemade granola. I just made some this morning, one of my favorite activities. We're also working on launching a new orientation class. That has been definitely a learning experience for me. And my oldest daughter is about to start kindergarten, so I'm learning how to be a kindergarten mom.
Love it. Thanks for sharing, Kelly. And then our second customer speaker, we have Andy Wade.
Yeah, hi. My name's Andy Wade. I'm the training programs manager at Gordian. So we're involved in the facilities lifecycle. We help institutions plan for their facilities, align that with their mission and vision, estimate costs, and actually procure construction. So the full life cycle of a building. There are some themes here with parenting and AI. So Kelly, I tie that together for you. But I have 2.5-year-old twins, so I'm just kind of in like a eternal onslaught of learning between the two of them. I actually just finished my DISC certification, which is a personality assessment, communication assessment tool. Just finished that on Friday. And I'm also looking at AI, the ways that we can use some AI tools to train our operations folks on how do we communicate sales skills, even if we're not sales ourselves. How do we polish up some of those skills? So a little AI role playing there potentially.
Love it. I think we're all trying to upskill on AI right now. So
Mhm.
super hot topic. Before we dive in, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. First, we love questions. So if anything comes to mind during the session, drop it in the Zoom Q&A. We'll try to answer as many live as we can. And if we run out of time, we will follow up with you afterwards. In addition, we don't just love questions, we love comments too. So if something resonates, if you have a tip, or if your team has a mentoring strategy that's really working well, feel free to drop it in the Zoom chat. Just like with our icebreaker, feel free to keep the comments coming throughout the session. And yes, before anybody asks, this session is being recorded. So if you need to step away or want to share it with your team, we've got you covered. We'll send you the recording by email tomorrow, and you'll also be able to find it on absorblms.com. We just want to say a quick welcome back to our customers. And if you're new to Absorb, we're really glad you're here. As a quick refresher, Absorb's an AI-powered learning platform that helps employees, customers, and partners learn and grow. We support over 3,000 organizations and 34 million learners around the world, all with the goal of making learning easier, more engaging, and aligned to real business impact. And now, with Together as part of the Absorb family, we're expanding on what learning can look like. So Together is the leading platform for mentorship and peer learning. And at its core, Together is about helping employees grow, not just through content, but through each other. So here's the game plan for today. We're going to start looking at the problem many organizations face when it comes to connection and growth and the solution we see in mentorship. Then we'll walk through a quick overview of what Together is and how it works. And after that, we'll get to the heart of today's session, probably the reason why most of you came, our live customer panel with two Together customers, Kelly and Andy, sharing how they've built mentorship and peer learning programs that actually work. Then we'll wrap up with a few customer announcements and then leave time at the end for Q&A, so keep your questions coming. So to get us started, I want you to think back on your career for a moment. What has had the biggest impact on your learning? Take a second to reflect and then drop your answer in the chat, just like you did with the icebreaker. While you're thinking, for me, two people actually come to mind. First, my high school lacrosse coach, Coach Oates. I played lacrosse in college, so he helped me a ton. And then in my professional career, actually Absorb CEO Kimberly Williams. She's mentored me a lot, which I will forever be grateful for. All right, I'm seeing somebody said an instructor. Another person said good leadership, my first manager in L&D. Somebody else said a manager who deeply cared about my development. Yeah, a great manager can really be make or break. Someone else said leaders who shared experiences, kept me from making mistakes. Awesome. Love to see it. Feel free to keep sharing in the chat. Oh, somebody else said directors. Awesome. So as you can see in the chat, some of the ones that I've highlighted, and there's more and more that are coming in, when you're asked what's the biggest impact on your learning, the first thing that likely comes to mind wasn't a course or a textbook, it was a person. And there's a reason for that. People love to learn from people, and the research really backs it up. So in a degreed study on how the workforce learns, when working professionals were asked how they seek to learn things quickly to do their job better, employees answered that they overwhelmingly turn to peers first when learning on the job. So let's talk about the state of learning today, keeping all of this in mind. Setting up your LMS, building content, getting stakeholder buy-in, all of that is hard work. And for many teams, that feels like the finish line. But the reality is, without human connection, learning can often fall flat. Leaders are under pressure to boost productivity, keep costs down, and move fast. But then most companies are drowning in content. But content alone doesn't really drive behavior change. And why is that? Because people need interaction. They need feedback, reflection. They need human moments to turn knowledge into growth. So why aren't we seeing more peer learning and mentorship already? Well, the truth is learning often feels passive, disconnected, and can even be lonely. And so while peer-based learning is incredibly powerful, it's hard to scale without structure. So we see so many well-intentioned mentorship programs start in spreadsheets or Slack threads, which are super hard to track. But without the right tools, they can kind of fizzle out or lose their momentum. And so a lot of L&D teams want to bring in mentorship, but it can feel overwhelming to manage on top of everything else you're trying to do in your day job. That's exactly where Together comes in. It really takes everything that's hard about building mentorship and peer learning programs and makes it scalable, structured, and easy to manage. And so instead of me telling you more, I will let the expert take it from here. I'm going to pass it over to Nathan.
Hi again. So when we speak to customers and prospective customers about their mentoring programs, a lot of large companies do have a mentoring program, but as Liza said, they're often run through spreadsheets or really manually. And so wanted to briefly walk you through what does a mentorship platform actually do and help you with. And I wanted to do that by just aligning on the phases of a mentoring program, whether it's done manually through spreadsheet or with software. So typically you would start with a registration phase for your participants where they're signing up to indicate whether they're a mentor or a mentee and what skills and goals they're looking to work on. After that, you would have typically a matching phase where you can find those ideal matches. And if you're running it manually, most likely you're going to do an admin-led type of matching where the admin is kind of making those matching decisions. There are other ways to run matching if you have a little bit of software support. For example, you can let the participants themselves do the matching and approvals of those, or you can even have the system generate ideal matches for you. So there's a few different ways to run that. Scheduling is when folks have their sessions together and kind of have that recurring set of meetings. And then the development piece of it is making sure that all of these sessions are actually really productive and that we're learning. And there's a lot of great AI functionality that Together offers in this case that will help with kind of coming up with the most ideal meeting topics to talk about. And then finally, there's reporting. I mean, if you're launching an L&D initiative, it's kind of like the tree dropped in the woods without anyone knowing about it if you don't have the reporting for it. No one heard about it. So you do need the reporting, and software really does help with that, figuring out what is the ROI of this, how many people have met, what are the conversations actually about. If you are moving into a software as well, you have the ability to have a bunch of different integrations. You can, load in some information about your participants without them having to fill it in with an HRIS integration. You can have all of the calendar integrations that'll help you report automatically on how people are meeting and so on. So there's a lot of advantages there outside of the manual program. Now, in terms of use cases, what we really like to say is that our customers tend to launch one or a few programs to start, but what we really see is an expansion over time of multiple programs and use cases because that human connection is not just for an early career employee. It's really for all stages of your tenure and really all departments. And so here are just a few of the common use cases that we see our customers do this matching process for. You can have a broad all-employee program where anyone can find a mentor at any time, and it's usually participant driven where they're finding their own matches that they're interested in. You can also have a coffee chats on a similar vein where people are matched more or less randomly, maybe with a few different rules that you're putting in, but a more lightweight, one session at a time kind of match. And then you can have your more targeted programs such as high potential, career development, ERG programs, new manager programs. In those cases, you may have a little bit more involved process in terms of what profile fields you want in your matching, and maybe the admins get involved as well in helping with those matches. So there's so many different ways to use human to human learning to improve your L&D strategy. In terms of match types, my favorite analogy for this is sometimes I'll order on Uber Eats and maybe you're building a custom poke bowl, right? So I like to say that our four match types are a way to build your own bowl for a program. So you can have multiple match types in and try to kind of create the exact kind of program and use case that you're looking for. And so we offer the following four. We have a traditional one-on-one mentoring match where one person is the mentor and the other is the mentee. And these are meant to be typically more longer term matches where you're really focused on outcomes. You have Colleague Connect, which is similar to the prior one, except there's no implicit relationship of mentor and mentee. People can be the same tenure. What you're really focused on is learning from another colleague where you have complementary skill sets. Then there's coffee chats, which is meant to be a little more casual. Typically, the match happens just by the system without any kind of human approval for one session. And it's really focused on meeting people from other departments or within your department and just catching up and learning more about other people and feeling connected. And then finally, we have group mentoring, which is also a match type that you can put in together into your program that really has the benefit of scaling your mentor's time. If you have, one mentor that you want to have, 6 or 10 people learning from at a time. And it also gives people a chance to have a higher listen ratio to preparation and talk ratio and give them a little bit more of that group setting to meet other people. So you can use a combination of these match types in your programs. And so what about the ROI of mentoring? What we tend to see is that the first thing we will always look at is retention rates for your employees. A typical turnover rate on average for a given year at a large company is around 20 to 25% of your workforce. So you'll have about a quarter kind of turning over and a new employee starting. That's really quite typical. And what we tend to see is reduction rates of folks that are participating in that program of really significant amounts. And with every single turnover that happens, there's a lot of cost to that. There's the cost of offboarding them, there's the cost of recruiting, and there's the cost of lost productivity of that vacancy. So we really try to look for that as a sense of where the ROI is. You'll also see a ton more engagement, especially in this remote kind of environment. Just a lot better for company culture and how people come to work full force. And then finally, the productivity and the skills development. We really think that there's skills that you can learn in the LMS for sure in that independent learning medium, but then there are certain skills, how to be a better manager, how to deal with gender bias at work that we really think are just learned more person to person and are huge in terms of productivity of employees. So that's kind of why we've really built the platform is to bring ROI to the customers. And now I know a lot of customers of Absorb have already heard about the acquisition of Together and are super excited and eager to learn about how do we get to use this. And so I just wanted to talk about availability of Together and how that's all working and timelines. So our goal ultimately is to create the first LMS that incorporates mentorship and coaching and peer-to-peer learning into its ecosystem so that you have both that independent learning as well as that person-to-person learning. And we have a long and exciting roadmap of how we're going to do that and incorporate the two together really seamlessly. But let me tell you about more that short and medium term time frame. So we're aiming to have a integration of both the learner experience and the admin experience in the LMS available in September. And there's a chance that that may come even sooner, but general availability is going to be in September. And what that means, if you look at that screenshot on the bottom right-hand corner, is learners will be able to see all kinds of mentoring and social learning aspects inside their own learner dashboard, such as programs that are available to them to join, who their active matches are, who they have match requests from, and any recommended matches for them, as well as any upcoming mentoring sessions. The admins will also be able to see their mentoring programs and look at mentoring activity on their side. But before September, you don't have to wait. You can start using Together. It's just going to be standalone as a product on a different URL. So it'll be on togetherplatform.com where you access it. And we will still be able to have you use all the functionality, and we'll migrate you to the integration when it's available. But that's our time frame. So you can kind of choose how you want to get started there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nathan, for that introduction. I've seen a couple questions come in. We have Brent, who's on the Together team, in the background. He'll be answering some of those questions if we don't get to them live, but keep them coming and we will save them for the Q&A at the end. But with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to let Nathan, Kelly, and Andy have a conversation about how Kelly and Andy's teams are using the Together platform. So all of you on the call can learn from some of our other Together customers, and Andy also happens to be an Absorb and Together customer, so you can learn from both. So I will let Nathan take it from here, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Sure, Kelly and Andy, we're so excited to have you on and talk about your experience with Together. Wanted to just start with a basic question of how are you using Together with your use cases and what programs are you running? And maybe I'll kick it over to Andy since I know that you also use Absorb to start.
Sure. So yeah, we are. I said that I worked for Gordian, but the program that I run is actually across 3 companies. So Gordian is owned by a parent company called Fortive. They own a number of companies, but there's a few that are very like-minded in the industry that we serve and the clientele. And so the program that I run is actually across 3 of those operating companies. And so we're using it's called the Evergreen model. And so it is open to everybody. You can join at any time. You can leave at any time. There's a bunch of cool rules on how we get everybody set up. But ultimately, what we want to do is just make it like a very open and inviting atmosphere where people can participate and get out of it what they want to get out of it. I think that answers your question, Nathan.
Yeah, thank you so much. Kelly, how are you using Together?
Yeah, so we are not currently an Absorb customer, so we are kind of using it as a standalone mentoring solution. I think we can all agree that there's a lot of benefits to a mentor program, and it was a constant request in there in the field for us from our managers, because we have lots of unique locations set up across the country, and each location is following the same standards, executing the same programming, but they're not necessarily connected with each other or knowing that there's others around, especially not, on the other side of the country. So we are using it primarily as a mentoring platform to be able to help our managers connect with others in different locations that they wouldn't have interacted with normally.
That's great. And Kelly, I wanted to double click on how you set up your programs. We've got a little bit of a visual slide that I think you provided us for Connect and Grow programs. And so you've actually set up the software to have 2 separate programs with 2 separate audiences. Could you talk to how you decided to split that?
Yeah, so we have worked through a couple of iterations of a mentoring program. Ultimately, before we launched with Together, decided to just do a general survey out there to the people who had participated in our programs before, or maybe who had been invited and didn't participate, just to get a good understanding of what everyone was wanting to get out of it, what their interpretation of being a mentor or a mentee might be. And honestly, through those survey results, that helped us get to this point of deciding we needed some options for people, because to everybody, the word mentor, right, it means something different. To a lot of people, it meant very traditional career development. Like, that's where my mind went. When I hear mentor, that's kind of what I was thinking. But to a lot of people, that word mentor was kind of daunting, and it implied a big time commitment. They didn't think they had the capacity for it. They just wanted an opportunity to be able to connect with somebody who could support them, but not have this formal mentorship. So that's where we came up with Connect and Grow. So the Connect program does use the user-led matching. So it has a one-sided approval. Users can pick from some recommended matches, or they can browse in there from all of the people who are registered for that program. And just like Andy was saying, this one is designed to be a bit more evergreen, meaning that they can connect once if they want, they can extend that if they want. It's more of a casual connection where they're able to build those relationships, continue learning, or even seek out a subject matter expert to solve a specific operational challenge that they're having, versus the Grow program, which is more traditional, right? It's that intentional, longer term focus on career development. So this one has also user-led matching, but two-sided approval, meaning that the mentee submits their shortlist of preferred mentors, and then the mentor can approve that match before it begins. We also have this one set up, just kind of speaking to your point about how we have it set up. We have a rule in here that says if they're from the same region, try to avoid suggesting that as a suggested match purposefully, so that they're able to get connected with somebody talking about their career development, maybe outside of their immediate geographical area.
That's great. No, that makes a ton of sense to split it up that way. Thank you. I wanted to spend a little bit of time on how matching works in Together. And so, Andy, I'm going to kick it over to you in a second, but just at a high level for folks on the call, Together really wants to help scale this kind of learning process and the matching piece. And so you can set up rules around different parts of the profile of how you want folks to be matched and how you want match scores to appear. And so, for example, let's take department as a piece of the profile. You can, prefer to have matches that are outside of your department. You can prefer to have matches of the same department, and you can take this to all different kinds of profile fields like seniority, location, time zone, and so on. You can kind of really create whatever matching algorithm you want. And so, Andy, wanted to kick it over to you. I know we actually have a visual on some of your rules as well, but could you talk us through your philosophy around matching and how you wanted to set it up?
Yeah, so part of our challenge, like I mentioned, is we're over 3 operating companies, but within that, like there's so many different goals that everybody has. Like individual managers have a goal, and departments have a goal, and the operating company has a goal, and that just continues scaling up. And we had such a hard time getting the program to launch, but before we started to work with Together, because we were trying to satisfy all these different goals, right? And so I equate it to, like think I said this before, maybe on our pre-call, was like trying to get a piece of legislature through Congress. It's like everybody touches it and the goals change every time. And so everyone had an idea of what it should be and what it shouldn't be, and who should match and who shouldn't match. And I was a big advocate for, like, rather than us trying to determine all of those things, let's let the mentee decide what the mentee wants, right? Like, who is this program for if not the mentee? So we tried to shape some of the rules to say, like, these are the things that we want to control, and these are the things that where we want to be the mentee to be the driver. So you'll see, like in the top left, we have the rules that are being set, where we're controlling, like, how many mentees can you take on? We only want you to be able to have one. If you want to stay within your operating company, that's a rule, then you will stay. If you're in a particular time zone and you want other time zones, you can control that. And how many years? This was kind of our attempt to say, like, what is a mentor? It's hard to put your finger on, but maybe we think someone around like 3 more years of experience than you has something really valuable to offer. So we set that at 3. There's a couple other additional rules down in the bottom left where we say, like, we don't want you matching with your manager or your manager's manager. Let's remove those power dynamics from the mentorship. And we don't want you to match outside of 7 hours, because we don't want you to thinking that you've got to wake up in the middle of the night to meet with your mentee. But then on the right-hand side, we have, like, where the mentee really gets to drive. So this survey is sent to mentee and mentor alike. And it basically asks both sides, like, as a mentee, what are the skills and qualities that you want to absorb? And as a mentor, what are the skills and qualities that you can impart? And so then it breaks them down into these buckets: leadership and management, interpersonal communication, and so on. They can say if they want to stay within their particular department. They can say if there's particular, we have something internally called FBS. Do they want to learn more about that? But the algorithm is now working to say, like, where are all the matches? Where is the best possible match where all of this stuff aligns perfectly? And then if you go on to the next slide, Liza, the algorithm will spit out, like, based on everything based on all your inputs, we think this is the best mentor for you, and they'll give you a little score. But you can still peruse to say, like, maybe algorithmically that's the best match, but maybe there's something else about this person that I should know. And so there's some qualitative questions as well, just like a little more on their background, a little more on what they want to get. And so maybe somebody is matched at a 98, but you're really interested about some of their other soft skills or long form answers. And at the end of the day, the mentee gets to drive. And that has been so helpful for us to just say, like, let's not determine what we want them to get out of it, but let them get what they want out of it. And as a result, we'll all be better off. We can explore our individual paths.
Andy, that was a fantastic overview. Thank you. And for providing some of those screenshots of your program. Kelly, did you want to add anything on your matching philosophy?
Yeah, no, I mean, ours, I think that giving the mentee the ability, like Andy was saying, to be able to browse and feel like they are in control, they're not being assigned. That was definitely one of the pieces of feedback we noticed in our survey, was that they didn't want to feel like somebody was being assigned to them and they were kind of being not necessarily forced, but required to fit into a box that was prescribed for them. So that's certainly a huge piece of it, is allowing the mentee the ability to be flexible.
And so much harder to do when you're running a manual program with spreadsheets because the admins typically have to do the matching in that case. So just giving folks the ability with the software to set their own preferences is really helpful. I know today everybody is so busy, and when I talk to L&D customers, they're just swamped with initiatives and they can't add something else to their calendar. So I just wanted to turn to, how did this scale and how did Together make things easier for you? Was it, did it make it easier over a manual program to reach a lot of participants? Kelly, maybe you first.
Yeah, as I mentioned, we were experienced with testing out mentor platforms. So we knew exactly what we were looking for when we came together. I'll speak on a couple of those pieces. I think, I'll speak to the software second, but first and foremost, we were looking for a partner, because, like you said, this isn't necessarily my or anyone's full-time job. So having somebody who is an expert in this space was one of the really big drivers for me. Together helped us with the implementation and figuring out how to build the programs. And then once we launched, I now have a single contact. That's Nikki. Hi, Nikki. And she meets with me monthly. She helps me take a look at our programs, advise on some best practices, really helps kind of steer the solutions for any challenges that we're having. That level of support was and is huge for us. But obviously the software itself was also a huge game changer for us. All of the different pieces that we've talked about so far, the recommended matches, there's mentoring resources that were already built into the platform, the suggested agendas that really make the whole thing flow seamlessly, so the mentor, the mentee doesn't have to come to the table with too much pre-work done in advance. There's some help in there already for them. Nathan, you mentioned also the reporting suite. That was a huge selling point for us, having easy access to those quick stats. Like really, really easy for me just to pull it up every single month and be able to put it on a dashboard and get those quick numbers in front of our leaders, because that's what they want to see. Like you said, we can talk all day long about, what the benefits to me or what the smaller benefits are, but if there's no numbers or if we're not able to show some type of reporting, it's a little bit more difficult to tell that story. And the ability to have some custom data exports as well. Nikki has been really helpful in helping me navigate what what specifically we want to be able to get out and how we can pull those into some reporting. And lastly, I'll just touch on the integration with Microsoft Teams and Outlook. Those were non-negotiables for us as well. So having a platform that was integrating into the systems that our teams are already using on a day-to-day basis, rather than having to go pull it off of another website or an app, has helped with participation and adoption and ease of use of the program. And I think that was kind of the last box that we were looking to be able to check.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Andy, did you want to chime in there as well on any time savings or how this scaled for you?
Yeah, I mean, Kelly really hit on a lot of the functionality like that. I couldn't agree with anymore. That stuff saved us a ton of time. It was stuff that our leadership was looking for, like, I don't know if we can do this unless there's training resources. And it was so nice to say, like, well, we don't have to provide that. That's all built into the program. Yeah, integration into Teams, all of that is awesome. I would say maybe what I'd add is it allowed us to get out of our own way a little bit. So a lot of it's funny, my mom actually used to run a mentorship program, and Kelly said, like, this isn't our full-time job. And it was actually her full-time job because there was so much time that was spent like trying to create interest and get people involved, and then create the perfect match, and then schedule the sessions. And at this point through Together, like, I still am responsible for a third of that, like drive interest, get people involved. But the matching and the scheduling is entirely out of my hands. And that's the much more labor intensive and time consuming 2/3. So the fact that that's entirely out and I can just focus on like being the cheerleader, getting people involved, troubleshooting the one-offs, that allows me to spend time where it's actually valuable. And so, this at the end of the day, like, this is such a small chunk of how I spend my time, and it impacts such a large community within the company. The trade-off is a no-brainer for us.
Well, thank you for sharing.
If I can, Nathan, Andy, you said something that really resonated with me. I'm curious, like, how do you get your employees to get involved, get excited about the opportunity? Like, what are some of the tactics that help get people invested and using the tool?
So we just try to build it in throughout our programs. So like, as part of onboarding, I make sure that there's something very early on, like, hey, this thing exists. People probably aren't ready for it at that stage, but it plants the seed. In our instructor-led onboarding, I talk about it again. Now you've been here for a little longer, maybe things to consider. And then in our professional development program, it's either like, this is the next stage of your learning journey, or like, maybe you're a manager, you feel like, how else can I influence? Maybe it's time to get involved as a mentor. So we will do things throughout the year, like public service announcements. Hey, come join us. Don't forget about us. But it's really the way that we build it into the life cycle of learning that I think keeps it relevant.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. I guess before I pass it back to Nathan, Kelly, do you have anything you want to add on that question too?
Yeah, I mean, I think half the battle is getting someone to get started. So to Andy's point, keeping it woven in and a constant part of the conversation is definitely key. We've done some intentional like participation campaigns. So like running for a quarter, everybody who joins and completes a mentorship within this amount of time eligible to be entered into a prize drawing. We actually just did one. We just wrapped it up at the end of March. We called it New Year, New Mentor, which was really fun. And it really just gave us the opportunity to be able to get in front of districts and regions on their team calls, or join our, sector-wide town halls, kind of add some color to what they maybe have heard about elsewhere. We did a fun little video to go with it, and really just kept the conversation front of mind. Here, great. You can see on this slide here, we saw a 39% increase in monthly sessions versus what we had seen so far in the life of the program. And now we're getting to highlight these 4 winners who have nothing but positive things to say. So we're getting to tell the story, the kind of human element that goes along with it. I looked just before our call and I noticed that there's over 60 hours scheduled for future sessions still. So it's not just something that they did maybe win the prize during the campaign quarter, but they've got some future sessions scheduled as well. So the participation didn't just die. That's exactly the goal, right? Is that they're not too afraid at this point. They know that it's not a big, scary mentorship, or it's not a huge, heavy commitment that they need to block out several hours of their month for. It's something that they're seeing enough of a benefit for that they're coming back for more of it. We've had a lot of fun with these participation campaigns.
Awesome. All right, Nathan, sorry to interrupt. I will send it back to you.
No, I think actually flashing up those quotes from folks is really great. We see this all the time with customers. Is there's just a feed of feedback that they'll have for their mentor and their mentoring sessions. Maybe Andy, we're on the topic of results and reporting. Could you speak to what kind of results you've seen so far? Any stats or things like that that stick out to you?
Yeah, so we're, as I mentioned, like we're very just let the mentee drive is our focus. And so that's the primary way that we're measuring success, is like sustained engagement and satisfaction, rather than trying to measure, are we getting these business outcomes? So to that, I've just got our little, again, very easy reporting dashboard right here. We have over 300 users. We've had almost 700 completed sessions. More than half of those have a completed feedback survey. And of that, our mentee satisfaction score is a 3.89 out of 4. And the mentors are a 3.92 out of 4. And so what I always say to people is like, you have over 600 sessions that have happened. Over half of those people have given feedback, and it's still a 3.9 out of 4 for everybody. And so how can you not say there's no value there, right? People wouldn't come back for more. They wouldn't be giving it a 3.9 out of 4 if it wasn't valuable. And so don't get lost in the sauce. Don't get lost in trying to measure every outcome. If they're coming and they're happy, they're getting something out of it. And that's improving culture, that's improving output. And so that's the metric we care most about.
That's great. And I think you also mentioned that you were using mentoring to bridge gaps between some of your business units and break down silos. Has there been any impact on that so far?
Yeah, I would say there's definitely impact within opcos across departments. We see people are very interested in learning what the other departments do, either whether that's directly related to their job or just kind of tangentially. We see a lot of crossover there. We don't see as much opco to opco, but that doesn't really surprise me. Like even myself, I want a mentor within my opco who understands some of the politics within my organization. So that's okay. We're not trying to force people across opco. We just want it to be available. And so I see a lot of success in the like cross-pollination within operating companies and a little bit outside of it.
Great. And Kelly, you mentioned just now that you kind of did a little re-engagement campaign, but you also have run several iterations of the program with your time using together. And so what changes other than that have you made along the way, and anything that you've learned about being an admin?
Yeah. Our first formal approach was actually very different than what we do now. It's the true like mentoring circles kind of setup. So we had a hand-selected mentor, several mentees that were within that group, and then they were scheduling kind of regular group sessions together. And we did see some strong participation with that initially, but I think that it dropped off due to that group format, having to schedule a time that worked for a whole group with different schedules, or maybe covering a broad topic when the individuals were seeking something that was a bit more individual for themselves. I will say that there were some strong relationships built through that format that are probably still going today, but it was a pretty manual process to select those mentors, make sure they were setting up those calls, kind of keeping track of what everybody was completing. And so it wasn't something that was very scalable for us. So when we took a look at our next iteration, we were like, okay, let's remove all of those rules. Let's make this thing, for lack of a better term, loosey-goosey, and kind of let people connect where they want to. And, I don't want to box them into an agenda. I just want to let them decide what it is they want. And we used kind of a lower tech software that didn't integrate in with our Outlook or provide reminders. So we had a hard time kind of getting traction due to the tech. And that's where we kind of had that light bulb moment of realizing, like, okay, we've tried one extreme with the circles that are very structured. We've tried another extreme with the one-on-ones that don't have as much structure. And on both sides, we got positive and negative feedback, right? We weren't able to really please everyone all at once with either of those. And that's why we took that survey approach, tried to just get a really good understanding of what exactly they wanted. They kept saying they wanted mentoring, but then the participation kept dying off. So where were we missing that? And that's where we kind of would launch into where I was able to find together. We were able to create those two different programs and give them the flexible participation options that they needed.
Thank you. I'll just ask maybe two more questions to Kelly and Andy before we hand it over to Liza to do the customer Q&A section. But maybe for Andy, I'm just curious, when you said, maybe a third of the work is on engagement, that's still there when you're doing a software solution. So what kind of channels are you using to promote registration when registration is open? Is it through Teams, email, kind of like an all hands meeting? What have you done to promote the registration?
Yeah, so in our program, registration is always open. So like I said, I'm just trying to build it in throughout the program, but I guess I'm using anything at my disposal. Like if we have an all company all hands meeting, we try to carve out a little 5 minutes to talk on it. It comes out. So we have onboarding curriculums that are being distributed out of Absorb. And so one of our courses is like, here's the Together mentorship program, and you can join. And then some of it in our instructor-led programs for our employees, it's more of just a talking point for us. This is your continued development, or these are the ways that if you're a manager, these are some ways that you can support development of your employees without you actually having to do the lifting. But yeah, we're, emails, chats, any way that we feel like we have an audience's attention, if we can remind them this exists. And again, I think part of the beauty is like, you can participate how you would like. If you want to come in and you want to meet regularly, you can. If you're somebody that wants to meet once a month, you can. And so it's the lift that you're okay with, rather than being told how much to lift.
And Kelly, for you, I wanted to ask if you want to chime in on that, please feel free. But my question for you was how your mentoring programs fit into the broader employee growth and life cycle stages throughout their tenure, or any strategy you have around
So the mentor program, when it was like the first iteration that I was referencing, the whole time it was born out of realizing that we have a very diverse frontline workforce. And the more you grow up in the ranks, the diversity doesn't appear quite as much. So it's actually an initiative of our company's Diversity and Inclusion Action Council. So our DIAC has a small committee on it, and we work on this program together. And through that, and what I was just like thinking that I wanted to be able to toss in here, through that, we're able to get it woven into different places because there's a couple different voices on that committee. And we were able to start small with it. So kind of our larger strategy wasn't, get it plugged in everywhere right at once in the beginning. We launched with the 2 programs, and now we're looping it into onboarding, like Andy was saying. And we've got, a plan to kind of expand to maybe our hourly population, but the way that setting up the programs and creating different participation options is available to us, it's nice to be able to know that we didn't have to do it all perfectly at the very beginning, that we could kind of take that bite-sized approach to get started. And then now we have seen how it works. We have seen where the impact can be, and we're able to continue expanding it that way. Hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful to figure out what kind of motivated the program and where it fits in.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
Liza,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I'll turn
can
it over to you.
take it from here. Nathan, thank you. Kelly and Andy, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your stories, answering our questions. I'm sure there might be a couple more questions that come in from some of the Absorb customers on the call. Before we jump to the Q&A, I did want to just jump into our customer announcements really briefly. Some of you may have heard this on some of our other events, but if this is new to you, it's new within like the last month and a half. We now have our strategic learning playbooks that are hosted in Absorb Academy, Absorb's customer education portal, available to you. So what are SLPs, as we're calling them? They're structured e-courses that combine expert-led training, supplementary resources, and then some of them even offer live boot camps. And each playbook really follows a proven framework to take any guesswork out of building an effective learning strategy. The goal is to really just like help you maximize the tools you already have access to solve real business challenges. And so with that, we have 3 strategic learning playbooks that are available to you today. There are more coming down the road, so keep an eye out. But right now, we have the upskilling playbook available where you can learn how to leverage Absorb's built-in tools to create, deliver, and measure upskilling programs. We have a corporate onboarding playbook available, which is really a step-by-step guide to design and optimize your onboarding experience in Absorb. And then lastly, really focusing on our mentorship conversation today, we now have the mentorship playbook available, which provides you different templates and practical tips to help you build a scalable mentorship program using Together. So all of these are available free to you in Absorb Academy. And with that, I am going to go ahead and launch a poll on the screen. You can go ahead and let us know if you're interested in any of these strategic learning playbooks. I also have a question in here if you'd like to be followed up with about any of the tools, the mentoring tools that we talked about today. And at the bottom, I also have a couple of questions just for feedback in general. We are trying to do more live customer sessions, more customer panels like this. So again, if you enjoyed a session like this, let us know. Gives me more reason to go back to our team and say, hey, we need to bring on more customers like Kelly and Andy to share their stories with us. And so I'll leave that poll on the screen for a second. But we have some questions in the chat that I wanted to bring up. Nathan, we actually have a couple for you. So I'm going to start with those. One is, how can I leverage Together for a nonprofit organization? The examples mostly reference to company employees, while in my organization, our learners are external community members.
Yeah, so thanks for the question. We do have a number of customers that will use it for that external use case. The nuts and bolts of it aren't really that different. It's kind of the mentors and mentees can register. I think really what you need to do is in your settings, for example, with the calendar integrations, you would switch from more of that enterprise style calendar integration to more of that individual calendar integration where folks are consenting to their own calendar to be able to track those sessions and schedule them. So there's just a few nuances with integrations maybe that will be different, but generally it works just the same for an external use case.
Awesome. That's really helpful. Thank you. And Brent, thank you. Brent reminded me, I know I popped up the strategic learning playbooks in that poll. We also sent the links to the strategic learning playbooks directly in the chat if you just want to go ahead and access them while you're on this call as well. So Nathan, another question for you. will together, when integrated into Absorb, work well with the competency soon to be absorbed by skills programs?
Yeah, so Absorb launched that skills piece recently, and it is on our roadmap to integrate competencies and skills in with together. It's not going to come immediately in September, but what you will notice is that one of the core ways that we match and one of the core profile fields is getting a sense of people's skills and goals and what they're looking to improve. That in the future will sync over from your absorb competencies so that there's just less to fill out and more integration with those profiles. So keep an eye out for that.
Awesome. All right, and then one more question for you, Nathan. What tools, metrics, and planning have Absorb and the Together team put together to ensure that we can successfully pitch and roll out these mentorship programs? I know the SLP is kind of one of them, but I'll let you jump in.
Yeah, Zachary, no, that's a really great question. If you hop onto our website, togetherplatform.com, there is a ROI calculator there for you, and it has three different elements depending on which pieces you want to focus on. You can calculate some ROI from employee retention, from productivity, and from saving time running your mentoring program. If you want something more tailored for your pitch, I would encourage you to talk to your account manager and they'll help you craft something there. But that's a great starting point. And we have a lot of different customer case studies. So if there's a particular use case that you're interested in, we have off-the-shelf white papers and PDFs of pieces we can send you to create a comparable result for you. So thank you for that.
Awesome, that's perfect. Andy, we do have one question for you. So for any of our current Absorb users, which I know you are as well, that are maybe thinking about using Together in the future, what is the biggest way that you see the two platforms working together for your organization?
Yeah, I think for me, and this might be more unique to us, but a big piece is integration. So because of the way that we're like one company, because three into one, and there's a lot of, we just have so much internal scrutinization around security. And so it's really easy for us in Together to integrate a data feed, but our end is more on the back end of some of the challenges we have there, but we're already Absorb customers. That's already directly connected to our HRIS system. And so my hope is that like that just becomes super seamless and that like we already exist there and so does Together. And from there, our ability, as I imagine it, like our ability to link it all together and go from like, it's not just a course in your onboarding curriculum about the program, but like now it's all integrated. And I have a lot of ideas in my brain about what that could look like, but I'm hoping that it just makes that whole piece of like you become an employee and now it's one fell swoop. We're being onboarded, we're being developed, we're involved in mentorship, and it's all in this one place. And I'm very excited for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And with 2 minutes left, Kelly, I have one more question for you as well. Obviously, you mentioned that you've had a lot of different iterations for your mentorship program. Kind of what do you see as the next phase moving forward? Where would you like to see your program continue to grow?
That's a great question. Like I was mentioning, we have lots of ideas for how we better loop it into our onboarding program. We currently primarily target our salaried audience. So we have 80% of our company who we're not really even targeting right now to be able to utilize the platform. So being able to open it up to our hourly team members has also been a big part of our conversation. I think that, just continuing to listen to the feedback is probably our biggest job, and seeing what they're saying works well and how we can continue. Maybe there'll be a third program type, connect, grow, and something else, depending on what it is that they're out there seeking. And I don't know, just continuing to get to offer those additional opportunities for our team members.
Oh, absolutely. Well, again, Kelly, Andy, thank you for your time today. Nathan, thank you for your time as well. And thank you to everybody that joined us today. We hope you found some valuable tidbits here and there. We hope you learned about Together and mentorship. And if we weren't able to answer your question live, as I mentioned at the beginning, we will follow up with you afterward. So don't worry, your question will be answered. Thank you again for joining us today and for the feedback. And we hope to see you at another one of our webinars coming up soon. Everyone have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.